The image of a French Formula One car, painted in the blue of the Alps, tearing around a wet Silverstone circuit is nothing new. We have seen it for decades. But if you look beneath the carbon fiber skin of the Alpine A526 that debuted this week, you will find something that would have been considered heresy just a few years ago. You will find a Mercedes-Benz power unit. This shakedown at Silverstone wasn't just a systems check. It was the final nail in the coffin of Renault's manufacturing pride, and simultaneously, perhaps the most ruthless strategic decision the team has made in the modern era. For those new to the sport, it is vital to understand the magnitude of this shift. Alpine is owned by Renault, one of the largest car manufacturers in the world. Historically, they build everything themselves, the chassis in England and the engine in France. To shut down that engine factory and buy a German engine from Mercedes is an admission of defeat. It is like Ferrari buying an engine from BMW. But for the veterans watching, you know that in the brutal world of Formula One, pride does not win championships. Lap time does. And Alpine has decided to cut off the arm to save the body. Today, we are going to analyze this new technical marriage. We are going to look at the early data from the shakedown, the rumors that the chassis has already hit the minimum weight limit, a feat of engineering that cannot be overstated. And we are going to discuss whether Pierre Gasly finally has the machinery to fight at the sharp end. This is the story of a giant that decided to stop fighting a war it couldn't win, so it could focus on the battles it can. Let's begin with the engineering reality of the 2026 regulations. We know these cars are technically complex. The regulations require a 50-50 split between the internal combustion engine and the electrical battery power. For the uninitiated, this means the battery is huge, the motor is heavy, and the cooling systems required to keep it all from melting are massive. The fear across the paddock has been that the 2026 generation of cars would be overweight, sluggish, and lethargic in the corners. However, the whispers emerging from the Silverstone garages regarding the Alpine are quite remarkable. Sources close to Enstone suggest that the Alpine A526 has already hit the minimum weight limit of 768 kilograms. Now, why does that specific number matter? In Formula One, weight is the enemy of performance. It is simple physics. A lighter car accelerates faster, brakes later, and puts less stress on the tires.
But here is the technical nuance for the hardcore fans. Hitting the weight limit this early is incredibly rare. Usually, teams start a new regulation era 10 or 15 kilos overweight and spend millions trying to shave it off. If Alpine starts the season at the weight limit, while their rivals at Audi or even Ferrari are carrying excess fat, Alpine begins every single lap with a 0.3 of a second advantage before the driver even touches the steering wheel. This speaks to the efficiency of the new partnership. By buying the Mercedes engine and gearbox package, Alpine didn't just buy horsepower, they bought packaging. The Mercedes gearbox is a known quantity. It is compact, it is reliable. It allowed the Alpine aerodynamicists to shrink-wrap the rear of the car. For the newcomers, shrink-wrapping is exactly what it sounds like, making the bodywork as tight as possible against the engine to let the air flow smoothly to the rear wing. When you design the engine yourself, you often leave gaps and margins for error because you aren't sure if it will overheat. When you buy from Mercedes, the team that mastered the hybrid era, you can design to the limit. We must also address the strategic sacrifice orchestrated by Flavio Briatore. His return to the team was met with skepticism, and rightly so, given the history. But one cannot argue with his brutal efficiency. It was Briatore who pushed for the shutdown of the Renault engine program. It was a decision that cost French jobs and hurt national pride. But look at the result on the balance sheet. The team is no longer distracted. In the era of the cost cap, where teams are limited in how much money they can spend, this is crucial. By becoming a customer, Alpine no longer has to split their budget between developing an engine and developing a car. Every single euro, every single hour of wind tunnel time is now focused purely on aerodynamics and tire performance. They have taken a gamble that a perfect chassis with a bought engine is better than a mediocre chassis with a mediocre engine. They sacrificed the entire 2025 season for this. We watched them struggle at the back of the grid last year, looking lost. But if that pain results in a car that is competitive out of the box in 2026, then the sacrifice was a masterstroke. Formula One history is kind to those who win, regardless of how they got there. Nobody remembers that the 2009 Brawn GP car was born from the ashes of a failed Honda project. They only remember Jenson Button lifting the trophy. Alpine is betting the house on a similar narrative.
Now, why is this specific partnership so dangerous for the rest of the grid? It ties back to the prevailing belief in the paddock that Mercedes' high-performance powertrains has unlocked a significant performance advantage with the new sustainable fuels. If the Mercedes engine is indeed the class of the field, a monster, as some insiders have called it, then Alpine has effectively purchased a first-class ticket to the front of the grid. Imagine a scenario where the Mercedes power unit is significantly more efficient than the Red Bull, Ford, or the Ferrari. Pierre Gasly won't just be fighting the Williams and the McLarens, he will have a distinct advantage over half the field. We saw this happen in 2014. The Williams team went from the back of the grid to fighting for podiums simply because they bolted a Mercedes engine into the back of a decent chassis. Alpine is a much larger, better resourced operation than Williams was back then. If they have the best engine and a chassis that is on the weight limit, they are not aiming for fourth place. They are aiming for wins. The integration of the Mercedes unit into the Alpine chassis seems to have gone smoother than anyone expected. Usually, when a team switches engine suppliers, there are teething problems. Cooling pipes don't align, electronic looms are different lengths, the center of gravity shifts. But the feedback from the Silverstone shakedown was that the installation was seamless. This suggests that the communication between the engineers in Brackley and Enstone has been going on for a long time, likely much longer than the public announcement suggested. This brings us to the human element, Pierre Gasly. He is a driver who has been through the ringer. He was chewed up by the Red Bull machine, sent back to the midfield, and has spent years rebuilding his reputation. He is no longer a young prospect. He is a seasoned race winner who is entering his prime. For Gasly, the A526 represents his last best chance to prove he belongs in the elite tier of drivers alongside Verstappen, Leclerc and Norris. He isn't just developing a car, he is leading a team that is desperate for validation. The wet shakedown at Silverstone didn't tell us much about ultimate lap time. You never learn much in the rain, but the body language of the team was telling. There was no panic, there were no long delays in the garage. The car ran. It worked. In the complex world of 2026 systems, where the braking is done by wire and the energy deployment is managed by complex algorithms, a boring shakedown is a miraculous shakedown. It means the systems are talking to each other. There is also the factor of the other Mercedes customers, McLaren and Williams. By joining this alliance, Alpine can benchmark themselves against the best. If McLaren is fast and Alpine is slow, they know it is an aero problem. There is no hiding place anymore. They cannot blame the engine. This brings a level of accountability to the chassis department in Enstone that they haven't had for years. It strips away the excuses. This move also signals a shift in the hierarchy of the sport. We are seeing a consolidation of power. Mercedes is now supplying 40% of the grid. That gives them an immense amount of data. Alpine contributes to that data pool. Every lap Gasly drives helps Mercedes refine the engine maps, which in turn helps Alpine. It is a symbiotic relationship that makes the entire Mercedes-powered ecosystem stronger against the threats from Ferrari and Red Bull. So as we look toward the official pre-season testing in Barcelona, keep a very close eye on the Alpine. Don't just look at the color of the livery or the sponsors. Look at how the car behaves in traction zones. Look at the top speeds. If they are matching the factory Mercedes team in the speed traps, we know the engine is equal. If they are matching them in the corners, we know Enstone has done their job. Formula One is often described as a constructors' championship. The romantic ideal is that you must build every nut and bolt yourself to be a true contender. That is the Ferrari way. But Alpine has looked at the modern landscape, looked at the complexity of the 2026 rules, and decided that pragmatism wins trophies. They have chosen to become what we might call a super customer. It is a controversial path. It insults the heritage of Renault, but it might just save the future of the team. The question remains,
Can a team truly be considered a great constructor if the beating heart of their machine is bought off the shelf from a rival, or does the trophy cabinet not care where the horsepower comes from? This is the reality of modern Formula One. It is less about romance and more about ruthless efficiency. Alpine has made their choice. Now we wait to see if the stopwatch agrees with them. For those of you who appreciate a deeper look into the engineering and business of the sport, rather than just the surface-level drama, this is the place for you. We analyze the decisions that actually change the championship. If you want to stay ahead of the curve as we approach the first race, consider joining our community. We will see you at the next analysis.